Respected concierge and his faithful lobby boy are on the run from a vengeful, greedy family after they steal a priceless painting that legally belongs to them. In a world of mysterious societies, cat murderers, and impeccable production design, can our two heroes come out on top in the 2014 comedy masterpiece, The Grand Budapest Hotel? I'm Connor Eyzaguirre.
And I'm Adam Johnson.
And this is Filmgazm. Welcome to the Filmgazm podcast. Our Best of the 2010s series continues with another tie, my number 4 and Adam's number 4, Wes Anderson's best film, arguably, The Grand Budapest Hotel. Adam, how did you first see this, and why did it make it onto your list?
Saw it in theaters. Would have been living in College Station at the time, but I want to say I may have seen it in San Antonio. I'm trying to remember exactly which theater. I should have the release date up. I'm looking for it right now. You don't happen to have it right in front of you? Oh, here. Okay, March 28th, 2014. So yeah, I would have been in College Station at the time, where I was living at the time, and saw tons of movies because we've mentioned this before. We had like a theater that was right by us that was like $4 to see movies. So I just went constantly. So I might have seen this by myself, maybe a roommate or two with me. But yeah, I definitely saw this in theaters. At that point, I was kind of like a Wes Anderson, like, oh, I like this stuff. And I have a friend, my friend Matt, who is pretty tight with Austin now too, is a huge Wes Anderson fan. So he kind of introduced me to some of his stuff, and so we'd watched a couple of them in the lead up to this, and then I've since seen them all. So this was kind of right in the middle of the obviously I discovered the guy, seen some of his movies, but like this kind of maybe like, okay, I need to go back and see everything. I'm going to see everything he does in the future. That kind of opened the door for me. That's kind of what this movie means to me. But yeah, definitely saw it in theaters. What about you?
I missed this one in theaters. At the time, I was not very familiar with Wes Anderson's work. I'd only seen The Life Aquatic. And I saw the trailer for this and thought, oh, that looks funny. And then I just forgot about it. When it came out on DVD, I was doing the Netflix in the mail thing. And this was next on our queue. And I watched it with my family, and we were all like, this is hysterical. How did we miss this? And that didn't lead to a discovery of Wes Anderson for me. That happened much later with The French Dispatch, where I decided, like, now I should probably, since Austin and I were planning to do an episode around The French Dispatch, but circumstances made that kind of just fall apart. But I'd already done all of this prep where I watched everything the man had done. So I didn't have anywhere to go with that. So I just had it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, so The French Dispatch, what year would that have come out? That was 2 years ago, is that right?
That was 2019, 2020. When the hell was it? Was it 2021?
I think it was 2021. I think it was post-pandemic.
Yeah, that was like that 4-year bunch.
It blurs. Yeah, it blurs for sure. I saw that in theaters with Austin. French Dispatch, we saw it together. Yeah, but yeah, I don't know what it was like, about this one. It is my favorite of his. Which is something I'm sure we were going to talk about. Like, and I can't exactly pinpoint why. All of them are a little bit like twee, and that's a criticism. That's like a stick that's used to like beat him with at times. I don't really mind that though, because I actually really like tactile things and like physical media, and it's like I have it in like the like kind of grand set designs and a little miniature figures. Yeah, I actually like that, like the craftsmanship that goes into that. At times, there's times where it feels like it's doing it just like to do it, but and he's certainly not above criticism, but I do think all of them have this like real unique approach. Like, it is so obvious that it's a Wes Anderson movie. And I think the recent kind of like TikTok, like AI, like Wes Anderson trend, like actually kind of underrates him and how good at this he actually is. Because all that stuff just looks like a knockoff of an actual master of the craft. But I actually really like his style and his thing. I mean, I'm glad not every movie's like that. Like, that would obviously be old, but it's like I like that there is a person who does this and does it at that high of a level.
It is neat. It's impressive, and it looks it's visually pleasing.
Very, yes.
It's hard to explain, like, just what is it called? Like parallelism or whatever. There's a word I'm blanking on here, but that actual like production design thing that he does, it looks so neat, and it's just so calming, but it can take over the film. Like it can become what people talk about as opposed to like the actual movie, which is what I feel Asteroid City dealt with a lot. But anyway, well, that segues into my question. So Grand Budapest Hotel is widely considered to be Wes Anderson's masterpiece, quote unquote, depending on, considering Oscar attention and what this film, like, the legacy it's had. So I was just like, I'm wondering, what do you think it is about the Grand Budapest Hotel that kind of supersedes the rest of his work and people consider to be like right at the front?
Yeah, I mean, so obviously it's going to be impossible. I do this all the time, and I sometimes I think it's not a great thing, but I do. I use sports sometimes to kind of like draw an analogy because that's how my mind works. I'm a coach. I'm a basketball coach, and I draw those analogies. Like he reminds me of like an athlete who like has all the tools at the beginning, and like some of his earlier stuff is like really interesting. And like is clearly has like a point of view and a story to tell, like in Bottle Rocket and some of these movies. But then like as he kind of advances, he gets bigger budgets, bigger casts, kind of a bigger like playground to like play with, right? Like and you find this like sweet spot of like young enough to like still kind of like have all these ideas and like energetic enough to kind of put them all like together, but then old enough to kind of like have learned from previous mistakes. And like you kind of find so like you find like the prime of somebody's career, right? So if a guy has like a 20-year playing career, it's like that prime is kind of in that year like 7 to 12 range, where it's like you're still young enough to be athletic enough to hang with like the very quickest, fastest players in the league, but you also have like the knowledge of kind of the prior years. And then there's some people who kind of like transcend that, and some people who they peak earlier or whatever. But he's like a classic person where it's like kind of right in the middle of his career is this thing where he's got the giant cast, the clear visual style, and it's also a story where he goes back. I mean, he goes back in time for pretty much every film he's ever done. But this one he goes back in time to this like kind of real, kind of not. I mean, obviously it's not a real place, but like it's clearly like a World War II movie without being a World War II movie, So I think that element adds to it a little bit. Like there's a little bit of stakes that we can kind of understand a little bit better than just like a family.
Yeah, for sure. I think this film it is the cast, it is the production design. I mean, prior to this, I mean, he'd done some neat stuff. He'd done some visually stunning films, but the level to which he committed to the Grand Budapest Hotel's production design is unheard of. I mean, he's got real stories that take place in universe in the newspapers that are just in the background. Like nobody ever picks up one of those newspapers, but it's a complete like story accurate newspaper. I mean, that's insane, but it's beautiful. And I don't know how it adds to the film's enjoyment. Like you can just kind of tell that he cared about every little bit of this movie. And
no doubt about it.
It's cool. Like I've never seen anything like that. And it is. I like that it's kind of like a World War II fantasy movie almost, the way it plays out. And it's also like a bit of a heist movie and like a mystery. It's kind of everything. There's even some horror in here with Joplin. It's it's everything.
It is. It's also like I think it's like maybe not his funniest movie, but like there's like genuine like even if you've seen it before, kind of like laugh out loud like moments. And it is just, I mean, all of his movies have this, but like especially this one is just filled with people who have like one or two scenes that are just like hitting it out of the park, like every time they're on screen. I think that helps a lot with the kind of overall enjoyment of like every scene has like something, and also it's like an hour and a half. It moves really quickly, like it has like this kind of like propulsive nature to it, and there is like a task involved. Whereas like some of the other films of his like don't really have that. It's like this kind of like slightly meandering thing, which I like, but it's like this one maybe is a little more kind of like accessible for just like a random person to watch.
I do like that. Yeah, the accessibility is a big factor. That's what I felt was missing from Asteroid City. I really didn't like that movie. I felt like it had no point to it, and like the framing device was so bizarre and hard to get on board with, and I don't know. But Grand Budapest has an even more complex framing device, but not once am I like, I don't know, I don't get this.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's living in a world and a story that like we're getting a different perspective of, but it's like a story like somewhat told before. It's like kind of vaguely Central European country like in the midst of like war and like uncertainty in the 30s. We've seen versions of that. This one is just like his version. So I think that's pretty cool. But yeah, I was just kind of looking at like some of his previous movies when we were talking there about like the budgets and like this one. So Fantastic Mr. Fox, partly because it obviously it's like what it requires to make that kind of movie is a huge budget. That took about 40 million to make. But like of his live action stuff, Grand Budapest was kind of the biggest jump. So it was a $25 million budget for the movie. So whereas like, you know, Royal Tenenbaums was like 21, and then like Rushmore was like 9 million, you know. So it's like these are pretty like, you know, indie, like low budget movies, but there was a bit of a jump to Grand Budapest Hotel from his other kind of live action stuff before that. And then since then he's kind of hovered around that price or even gone up a little bit. So you are seeing kind of like this like little moment where it's like, I remember like as this movie was coming out, it's like, oh, he was a brand name. Like, oh, it's a Wes Anderson movie. Like among movie people, like this is, you know, we're going to see a Wes Anderson movie, and that people understand what that means. Whereas I'm not sure that was happening necessarily with Royal Tenenbaums, you know?
Yeah, that whole concept pretty much got cemented with Grand Budapest, I think.
Yeah.
And then retroactively, everyone just kind of accepted that with the rest of his work, even though some of it, like Bottle Rocket and Rushmore, don't necessarily have that style yet.
Not yet.
But
no.
Now we can kind of just accept, like, yeah, it does fit in with the rest of this stuff. He's such a bizarre kind of figure in Hollywood, like with what he's done, with the work he's done, and where his eye is, and I don't know. It's like it's hard to explain, but
is this your favorite?
He's like Hollywood's art teacher.
Yeah. And like like in most people's minds, he's gonna have some hits, he's gonna have some misses, but like, you know, some people just like are devoted to him and love him no matter what he does. But and just like a great art teacher would have that, right? Like he's gonna have his students that like just no matter what he teaches or does, or like, oh man, he's just like a genius. Like he speaks to me, you know, personally. I think that's really cool. Would you call this your favorite Wes Anderson movie?
Oh yeah, by a lot for sure. It's the one I go back to.
I wouldn't say by a lot, but I would say it's mine as well. I think Royal Tenenbaums is awesome. That'd probably be my number 2. But yeah, yeah, it's my favorite. It is my favorite though.
Tenenbaums would also be my number 2. What would be your number 3 if you had to go that far?
I love Rushmore. Rushmore, I think, is absolutely hilarious. I think Schwartzman is so funny in that. And it's like quite a, you know, I don't know, as like somebody who's worked in a school for a long time, there's like a lot of little elements of it that are pretty cool. I mean, there's not any that I don't like. I thought French Dispatch was kind of, you know, it was good. It's fine. You know, I wasn't like, I'm not racing to, you know, see it multiple times. I do think if I see Asteroid City again, it'll kind of hit me harder. I liked it more than you did, but I wasn't on that podcast you guys did the reaction to it, but I was probably somewhere in between you two. Like I didn't like it as much as Austin did, but I think I liked it more than you did. So yeah, I mean, yeah, I would say it is. And I love the two kind of like the like stop motion, the Fantastic Mr. Fox and Isle of Dogs. Like those are just really cool, unique things. But I've not gone back and watched those like over and over. Fantastic Mr. Fox is pretty dang funny though. I do like that one. And Clooney as the voice is fantastic. But yeah, there's not any that I don't like though. That's what's kind of cool. But this is my favorite.
Yeah, so I think I'll see more in Asteroid City if I watch it again. I know I will. Yeah. I was a bit jarred by how dull it initially was, but I'll figure that out. That's the only one of his that I didn't really like that much. I think number 3 for me is probably the Darjeeling Limited.
Oh, I didn't even mention Darjeeling. Yeah.
That was just a delight and just a cute movie.
You can imagine Austin and Jeremy and I have related to that one a bit at times with the brothers.
No way.
Yeah. That's definitely one that we've talked about and understand from a certain perspective. So
yeah, for sure. I'm glad I have. He's a director who is worth watching all of his work. Everything has something to take away from that anybody can pretty much enjoy.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So where did the Grand Budapest Hotel come from? Wes Anderson conceived this film in 2006 when he wrote an 18-page script with his friend and collaborator Hugo Guinness. The film version of that script would have been about 12 minutes long, so Anderson continued researching. He was largely inspired by the work of Austrian writer Stefan Zweig, who was globally famous for his work during the 1920s and 1930s. And I've never looked into this guy or read any of his work, but all I know about this guy is the bit at the end of Grand Budapest where it says inspired by the works of Stefan Zweig.
Yep.
No, which is I'd love to look into like where like what the connection is, but that requires a lot of reading of some Austrian literature from the 20s and 30s, and I don't have that kind of time.
Interesting time to be writing in Austria, though.
Yes, very much so.
Say the least, yeah.
Once Anderson knew where he was going with this, he wrote the Grand Budapest Hotel in about 6 weeks. I can't believe that. This monumentous story took 6 weeks to write.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
God, it's amazing. I love that when these guys just crank out a masterpiece in like a couple months. After he premiered Moonrise Kingdom in 2012, another one we forgot to mention, he started scouting locations for Grand Budapest. I liked Moonrise Kingdom. It's a nice.
I did too. Yeah. I did too. Yeah. I also saw that one in theaters, and that's another one where I was like, okay, like I think I'd seen a few of the things. I might have watched that with my friend Matt, who is a big Wes Anderson fan. Like I think I went to the theaters with him to watch that, and he was like very much like, oh, I've seen all of these. Like I'm looking forward to it. He was a big Darjeeling guy, and that's one of the first ones I watched of his. And then we watched Rushmore, but. I know you mentioned it earlier, but Life Aquatic. It's like Life Aquatic is great too. I mean, yeah, they're all good. I mean, that's they're all worthy of a mention.
Yeah, I wonder. Like, I know he's got a lot of Criterion movies. I don't know if he's got the most of like for the ratio of like a director's work and their Criterion selected stuff. Sure. But he's got pretty much everything.
Really?
Yeah, I think everything but The French Dispatch and Isle of Dogs, maybe, but everything else is in there. When it came to casting, Anderson brought his usual troupe of character actors, including Adrian Brody, Edward Norton, Owen Wilson, Bill Murray, Willem Dafoe, Harvey Keitel, Jeff Goldblum, and Jason Schwartzman. The only actor who wasn't his first choice was Tilda Swinton as Madame D, who accepted the role after Angela Lansbury had to drop out due to a prior commitment. She was doing a stage production of Driving Miss Daisy, which is interesting because Tilda Swinton fucking perfect in this movie.
Yeah. I didn't know that. That was really good that worked out that way. Because she's awesome. She's very funny and like looks like absolutely ancient with the makeup that they give her.
Yeah. Ray Fiennes was very eager to play Monsieur Gustave, as he was looking forward to not playing a villain for once. Fresh off of Harry Potter, he'd been Voldemort for like 6 years. And he also played Hades in the Clash of the Titans movies. So he was typecast. So to get to play not necessarily a heroic character, but not a monster was probably a nice change of pace for him.
Yeah, he's also a little bit like in Skyfall. Like, I mean, he's not a villain by any means, but he's not like your favorite character. He's not like the guy that's, what I mean? Like there's a little bit of tension between him and Bond, so no, yeah, and it's like completely lovable. I mean, yeah, well, obviously we're gonna talk about him. It's a powerhouse performance.
Yeah, it's amazing. It might be my favorite. In Bruges is up there, but this is that's one I'd have to think about.
Yeah.
The Grand Budapest Hotel was a big hit, grossing 173 million on a budget of only 25 million. And to make something this awesome with only a $25 million budget, that's also just amazing. Like, I've been talking a lot about budgets on First Thoughts because a lot of the stuff that's coming out these days, like, unbelievable. Like Indiana Jones and Mission Impossible were $300 million to make. Didn't make it back, really. It's like you don't need that kind of money to make something amazing.
No, and they take these like huge swings on some of this stuff, and it's just like, man, I don't know. Like that's what I'm saying. Like this, the tactile, the real. It's like that. Sometimes like those movies, the Indiana Jones of the world, the Mission. I mean, I like Mission Impossible, but it's just like you do hit these moments. Mission Impossible shouldn't belong in this because it's obviously like a stunt movie, and he does a lot of the stunts. But like where it's just like these crazy CGI, like over the top, like the last few Marvel movies. I'm just like, I find it just like so boring. I'm just like I can't even like it all just is the same thing. It's just like a blur of just like the same kind of like CGI nonsense, and it's like so clear the actors are like not together or not acting in real life. It's just like a green screen. Like that's why I do appreciate, like, I settled in last night to watch this movie and it's like, oh, these people are there. They made that table, they made that piece of fabric, they made that wall, like, you know what I mean, they made that little door, the way the guy walks through. Like I just think like all of that is like so much more impressive, and it holds my attention way more than like these just kind of nonsense CGI movies that I've been pretty out on this year.
Yeah, I joke around about it, and I literally just talked about this. Caleb and I just recorded a First Thoughts on Talk to Me not 2 hours ago.
Okay.
And I brought up we started talking about this exact thing, and it really is, it's cliche and it's goofy, but love really is the secret ingredient. to film. Like when you make something that you care about, the audience is they're gonna respond to that. But when you just crank out a CGI stroke fest that's 2.5 hours long and means nothing to nobody, we're gonna respond to that too. Yeah.
And it's not like, I mean, they're not like they're all bad. It's just like I just have a total like, I leave them and like I just shrug. I'm just like, whatever. Like I'm never gonna think about that again. I'm never gonna, you know what I mean? It's just like whatever. Like that just meant absolutely nothing to me. Like I have no emotional attachment to this stuff. It's just like, like, okay. Like it's not, again, not bad, like whatever, And that's the other thing too. This is not necessarily the CGI house's fault, but they're so backed up with so much like content, so many kind of like high budget movies that it does look worse. Like it looks worse than it did 7 years ago, some of the CGI in some of these movies, particularly the Marvel ones. And I'm just kind of like, okay, like we moved backwards in this thing that like already was kind of annoying, like the CGI fest, but now it's like even worse. It doesn't even like look that great. So it's like it's like this double whammy of just kind of like shrug for me.
Well, I've noticed also that, especially lately with a lot of this stuff, they tend to take their audience for granted. Now they just assume like, you're going to show up, you're going to see it. So why should we put, any more effort into it than we have to? And I felt that with Indiana Jones big time. I felt that with even Haunted Mansion, which just came out. Like it was good, but it was also like, am I gonna watch this again? Probably not. Whereas like Talk to Me, I definitely plan to watch that again. That was a low budget Australian horror film that was really, really good. So yeah, it's just I like that Wes Anderson commits to a real set, real production, real actors, original story. So I do appreciate that. I've started to really not respond to blockbusters anymore. I'm just I can you can see what's going to happen a mile away. There's just I'm losing interest, which sucks, but I'm evolving.
Hey, well, and also, I mean, that's not necessarily, I mean, that is, a bit of an evolution on your part, but also like a sign of the blockbusters aren't as good, like it's like, indie films have kind of like sustained this like high level of quality, whereas like a lot of the blockbuster films aren't as good. Like I'm trying to think of just a random like 90s or 2000s kind of blockbuster movie. It's just like, I mean, I guess like that kind of like middle wave of like the Marvel movies. Like I'm like out on Marvel completely. Like I mean, I didn't never really enjoyed them, but like Endgame, Black Panther, like those are, I mean, like achievements in filmmaking. Like they're incredible achievements in filmmaking, even though I'm not even like a huge Marvel fan. But like what they've offered up recently is just like nowhere even close to that stuff. Like it's just not even close. And so we're in this like weird kind of like, I mean, Top Gun Maverick last year, I guess that's like a classic kind of event, like blockbuster filmmaking that I thought was very good. But yeah, it is like it does feel a little bit just kind of like, yeah, just like we're in this like weird lull with a lot of that stuff, and that's okay. That's okay because but I just hope there's room for other stuff. The Barbie Oppenheimer thing was a really cool. Like I'm sure you guys have talked about that a little bit, but like I saw both of them back to back. I haven't been able to talk about it on any podcast here on Filmgazm. That was a cool moment, like for movies, right? To have that like weekend where like everybody's going to see these two movies. And I felt very differently about each one. I don't know if we want to give our thoughts here. Have you did y'all do y'all did an Oppenheimer one? Have you done a Barbie one?
We did a Barbie one. My partner for Oppenheimer got sick, so we weren't able to do that one.
Oh, did I have that? Okay, I had that flip. You did a Barbie, not an Oppenheimer. Okay. Have you seen Oppenheimer?
I have. I thought it was amazing.
I did too. I was like, damn near 5-star movie. Yeah, it's like that was absolutely incredible, and I do not hand those out very very easily. So. And that's when it's like, despite it being 3 hours, like I will definitely try to see again. I might even try to do IMAX, this week. And that's really cool. That's a big budget, high concept, like blockbuster movie that was like pulled off. It's 3 hours long. About a physicist in the 1940s and 50s. Like, it's like that shouldn't really work, but it does because of like the high content, the really the craftsmanship of it. But again, not that much CGI, right? It felt very real. It felt very practical. And I think that's something, we can kind of tie back to, the Wes Anderson part too. Like the tactile nature of his films is just like such a huge part of it to me.
Well, and also Barbie and Oppenheimer had auteur directors with a clear vision who were making a film of their own, not dictated by the studio, and Greta Gerwig and Christopher Nolan. Whereas a lot of these blockbusters are just, work for hires for people who, sign a 3-4 picture deal with Disney. Yeah. So that also comes into play for sure.
Yeah. It's clear that like, Greta, I mean both of them, but like, yeah, it's like that could have been riddled with like someone being over her shoulder, like, nope, this is what it's gonna be, this is what it's gonna be. But they gave her the freedom to do it, and she made her movie. No, it's not like my favorite movie of all time, but it's like I'm so glad they let her make her movie because I love her. And I hope she just continues making like really cool movies. Like she's just such a unique voice. I really like kind of like what she brings to the table.
Yeah, for sure. I thought Barbie was great. I thought it was hilarious.
So yeah, okay, you actually liked it quite a bit, didn't you? So I mean, I I liked it. I was just kind of like, I don't think I'll ever see this again. I do like not worry or whatever, but like the marketing of it, it's definitely a different movie than most people think, right? So you and I are like really plugged into kind of the movie world, so we probably knew kind of what it was going in. But like, I'll have like kids that I work with, and a lot of girls too, like, and they were kind of like disappointed because like, oh, I kind of hoped it was like a little funnier and a little bit more like kind of for me, and not like preachy's the wrong word because it's not preachy, but I think it clearly has a message. It clearly has a point of view. I mean, that's there's no doubt about that. But it is pretty heavy-handed, like with the message, and I don't like that didn't bother me at all. But I can see why if you didn't really know that going in, like that'd be like, oh, okay, like this is like way different than I thought, and so I can see why you'd be disappointed.
That is fair. You hear a movie's being made about Barbie, and you think like, oh, this is going to be like the girl version of like Transformers or GI Joe, but you put Greta Gerwig behind the camera and you give her and Noah Baumbach the script. You got to be prepared for some social justice.
Yeah. Which is again, I didn't mind at all.
Yeah.
I thought it was really cool that they could like use Barbie as like a way to kind of like put these like this kind of like message in there. It was pretty heavy handed at times though, and there were times where I was kind of okay, like it didn't perfectly straddle the line of like, okay, let's be a comedy or let's be like a like a social commentary. It did miss the mark a couple of times for me on like that straddling that line. But like there's a part of me that kind of like wishes it would have just been like a little bit more of one or the other. Like it'd be even harder on the social commentary side, or like be a little bit funnier, And I think it just didn't really. So it just kind of like never quite, worked me. I also saw it immediately after Oppenheimer, which was like this thought provoking, like just massive film. So it was like, okay, I actually kind of wish I would have had a day in between. I maybe would have enjoyed Barbie a little bit more, but I was like still thinking about Oppenheimer so much that and was so like kind of blown away by it. I was like, I mean, it was like walk out of the movie, walk right next door into the next one, and like the like last trailer was playing. So it was like I had no time in between, to even figure it out. So yeah, that was my experience with it. But that's neither here nor
there. I don't think that's the right way to watch that. I mean, that's what 5 hours of just two very competing visions.
Yes,
I had like a 3-day period between the movies, which was fine. I could think through Oppenheimer and then I could prepare for Barbie.
Yeah, and in hindsight, I almost wish I would have seen them in reverse order. If I was gonna do them, I thought about like, okay, Oppenheimer's gonna be so intense, Barbie will be like the palate cleanser. But then I was like, like that's not really a palate cleanser. Like it's not that, you know what I mean? It's not that light. It's like I almost wish I would have done it in reverse, and then I could have just kept thinking about Oppenheimer as I went home. Like, and the Barbie would have been the fun. Like, oh yeah, that was cool. Like, good message at times. Like that's great. But like, kind of leave it at that. I definitely will see Oppenheimer again. I'm not sure I'll watch Barbie again unless it's like somebody has it on. Like I'm not gonna like seek it out to go see it again. You know what I mean? It was fine.
Yeah, it's crazy that we had like a movie about painful existential dread, and we also had Oppenheimer.
Yes. yes.
Not expect that.
Actually, their themes are actually like somewhat similar. I mean, that's the thing that was so unique is like there actually was some kind of like that like solitary who am I? What is my purpose in the world? What is my greater purpose? Like is like very like central to both of those movies. And it's like, I mean, but they obviously couldn't have been packaged any like quite literally packaged any differently, within the case of Barbie being packaged. But yeah, I don't know. Like what a cool moment though for movies to have like both of those come out on the same day and people really enjoy it. And I think it drove both of them to do really well on the box office.
Yeah, it took all focus away from Mission Impossible, and I like that too. But I do like original stuff to get a chance.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, Grand Budapest was nominated for 9 Oscars at the 87th Academy Awards, 4 of which it won: Best Production Design, Best Costume Design, Best Makeup, and Best Original Score for Alexandre Desplat. Was also up for film editing, cinematography, director, original screenplay, and best picture, which went to Birdman. This is the most Oscar decorated film of Wes Anderson's career.
Like pretty significantly, right?
Yeah, he's been up for screenplay a few times, but this was a different animal.
Had this many nominations, yeah, and the score is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, I'm really good at that kind of nomination because it's awesome. It really adds to the whole thing.
Yeah, I remember that year I was rooting for Alexandre Desplat for The Imitation Game. And then he won it for the Grand Budapest, which I was like, I'm still happy because he won.
He can stick it home. Yeah, either way. Yeah. In his mind, he could say, it's for either one. Who cares? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that was a stacked Oscars. I love pretty much all of those movies.
Yeah, I agree.
The Grand Budapest Hotel has an IMDb score of 8.1, Rotten Tomatoes score of 92%, audience score of 86%. Critics' consensus reads, typically stylish, but deceptively thoughtful. The Grand Budapest Hotel finds Wes Anderson once again using ornate visual environments to explore deeply emotional ideas. Very true. It is currently streaming on Hulu if you want to watch it there. Yeah, with that, let's give this film some awards.
Let's do it.
So first up, best line of the film.
I didn't know if you're going to start with this one because there's so many. I'm going to let you go first on this one though, because I have two just in case you picked the one that I picked.
Okay. Yeah, Austin and I did this on Oscar Sunday about a year ago. I do not remember what I picked, so I don't know if I'm repeating myself or if I've changed a little bit. But my line is from Gustav when they're on the train on their way, like after being assaulted by Edward Norton's goons. And Gustav tries to explain life and just kind of gives up. He says, "You see, there are still faint glimmers of civilization left in this barbaric slaughterhouse that was once known as humanity. Indeed, that's what we provide in our own modest, humble, insignificant..." Fuck it. Beautiful.
That's just him and Zero in the car at that point, in the little train car at that point, right?
Yeah.
No,
he's just like, fuck it, I don't care anymore.
Yeah, he does, and you can feel him trailing off like as he's going on his thing. Because what he's so good at in this movie is that kind of like quick wit, just like super sharp, like kind of long like paragraphs that just kind of like pack a bunch of things. You almost have to like listen to it twice, like go read the quotes to be like, oh yeah, he said that. Like this is what you're trying to say. But he is absolutely brilliant in this role. I mean, yeah, again, we'll talk about him in a bit, but or I'm sure we will. But yeah, I mean, you could have gone to, there's like 10 quotes from him that could have easily been this pick. So I actually kind of picked out two. So there's one from him and then one that the author says at the beginning that I think you'll understand is, you're somebody who actually writes. I'm somebody who like did write at one point and like fancies myself a writer, but I don't actually write anymore. So I like that. So Mr. Gustav, so this is when he sees the soldiers entering the hotel when they're like going back to the Grand Budapest, and it's kind of been taken over by the ZZ instead of the SS, which is a clever little bit there. And he says, "The beginning of the end and the end of the beginning has begun. A sad finale played off-key on a broken-down saloon piano in the outskirts of a forgotten ghost town. I'd rather not bear witness to such blasphemy." And then he's like, I don't want to ever go back in that hotel again. And then they go back in like a minute later. But yeah, I love that. I love that little bit. He just has this like ornate sense of like nobody actually speaks like that, which is why I like these movies because like they're very kind of like writer driven. But yeah, he just embodies that perfectly. That kind of like the pitter patter of like the quick wit. Really like that. And Zero plays off of him perfectly. Like they have such a great little chemistry.
They really do. They make this great. I love the whole mentor-mentee relationship.
Yep.
And it's delightful, reminiscent of like old like buddy movies from like the 40s.
Yeah. Yeah. So my other ones, this is from the author, which is Tom Wilkinson's character at the very beginning of the movie. And he says, "It is an extremely common mistake. People think the writer's imagination is always at work, that he's constantly inventing an endless supply of incidents and episodes, that he simply dreams up his stories out of thin air. In point of fact, the opposite is true. Once the public knows you're a writer, they bring the characters and events to you. And as long as you maintain your ability to look and carefully listen, these stories will continue to." And then the little kids are shooting with the little pop gun or whatever. But that's so beautiful. I think that's a really like keen observation and a really like, yeah, I mean, the kind of more I thought about that and the more I read it, I'm like, yeah, that really is true. Like people just kind of, like offer up these stories. Like you just happen to like, if you're the one looking for it, you can always find story in anything.
It's true. It's true. And it's neat. It's a great moment when that happens. I've had that happen for a couple of things I've written came out of circumstances that I just kind of stumbled into or were brought to my attention. And those are the strangest situations.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you can always tell when you're in a situation that is outside your norm, and I think those are the moments where you should pay the most attention, because whether it goes good or bad, you're gonna learn something, and I strive for those moments.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I like that.
Yeah, I love writer-centric shit because I get to be like, that's not my process, or that is my process. It's fun. A line I almost went with was when Gustav is confronting Serge in the confessional, and he just like has a panic attack. It's like, this has been a complete fucking nightmare.
Yeah.
I love the random bits of just like vulgar swearing that just pop into this movie. Like it's so out of place, but it works every time.
Yeah, it's actually is it well, I guess they've been R since there has a couple that have been R since then, but his earlier ones don't get an R rating, but this one does.
Yeah, I think for language, I don't think
Yeah.
there was any nudity in this one. There was in the French Dispatch,
Yeah,
but
was I'm trying to think if there's anything like any like just male, like kind of quick. Oh, well, there's that painting. There's the painting that he replaces Boy
oh
with Apple with. Yeah. Like the two women on the painting.
yeah, ugly fucking painting.
Yeah.
Uh,
Boy with Apple.
wow, I love that. I was reading
Oh,
into
there's a quote with Boy with Apple that I almost chose.
yeah.
Keep going. I'm gonna see if I can find it because I'll read it. It's worth the read.
Well, I was reading that like Wes Anderson employed like some very talented artists to create the painting. Like he meticulously had like somebody create Boy with Apple. And I love that. Like that's a real painting that a real artist made that I bet he's got hanging up in his like summer home in
Oh,
France.
For sure. If there's a print of it, I would absolutely like put that up, and that's just like that'd be. I mean, because anybody he ever came to my place and like knew it, that'd be such an awesome like conversation starter, you know?
It's like, oh, what a nice Van Hoytel.
Yeah, yeah. Van Hoytel, that would be if they knew the artist, that'd be yeah. It's like okay, we got a super fan here. Like we're gonna be friends.
Oh, fantastic.
Oh,
Yeah.
here it is. I found it. Okay, regarding Boy with Apple. So this is when I get back on the train car when they actually have the painting, and he says, "I'll never part with it. It reminded me of her. It will remind me of her always. Or it reminded her of me. It will remind me of her always. I'll die with this picture above my bed. See the resemblance?" And Zero goes, oh yes. And then just a minute later, actually, we should sell it sooner rather than later. Love that.
Oh, so good. He's such a hilarious, constantly thinking of the next scheme kind of character, and I love the guy. Great. Let's talk about this crazy score with best music moment. What do you got?
So I will say the first time I'm not gonna like be able to imitate it because I'm not gonna sit here and imitate a score, but the first time that kind of softer version of the score comes in, and it's when we see the yeah, I can't imitate it, but it's when we see the hotel kind of changing over the years, and that it's when you kind of like get the F. Mary Abraham like speaking in the background, like, and you really feels like okay, I'm settling in. Feel like I'm opening up a book as that moment's happening. Like we're gonna settle in for this like real tale. Now there actually is a physical opening of a book at one point, right? Like when the girl looks at the little statue. But that for me, like I just like feels like okay, let's settle in for this like like beautiful tale that's about to be told. And so it's that first time you kind of get that the piano and like a little softer version of the score. That is like kind of present throughout, but and obviously it changes as it flows, but that was the one that stood out to me.
Nice. I think I know what you're talking about. Yeah. All every bit of score is so charming. It's almost like lulling you into this, beauty, like a beautiful scenario. Like I don't know what it is, but it's Desplat has always been one of my favorite composers, and this is just such a delight. Mine is it's called The Family de Goff un Taxis. It's the first bit of I guess their theme. It's when Gustave goes to visit Madame D's corpse, and you look so lifelike. I don't know what you're using, but I want some. Just
yeah, what creepy. Yeah, that's a great line. Yeah.
But yeah, I love that kind of like hand. Yeah, like vaguely sinister, kind of almost creepy score. It gets amplified when we meet Dimitri and Jopling. It becomes like the bad guys theme.
Yep.
I love that a little bit. That's charming and creepy.
I know exactly what you mean.
Nice. Performance.
I mean, do we even need to like? We almost should pick somebody outside of Ralph Fiennes because it's like he's absolute knockout in this role. I mean, it's do you have somebody else?
It's Rafe. It's easily Rafe. Exactly. I like your idea of picking somebody else. That's a good idea.
Yeah, because it's so obviously him. I mean, he holds the whole thing together. And I wouldn't say it's like, oh, it's a doomed movie without him by any means, but he makes it what it is. I mean, he's in so much of it. It's really different than a lot of other Wes Anderson movies where like a total ensemble. I mean, he is clearly the star, and there's a bunch of supporting players. And Tony Revolori, I mean, this is his first like kind of major role, and I thought he was really good. But I guess if we had to pick a second one, do you have somebody in mind that you go with?
I'd probably go with Willem Dafoe.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah,
Jopling is such a sinister character, just this, hitman for hire, when he like just chucks Goldblum's cat out the fucking window. It's
Yeah.
so jarring, and you're like Goldblum. You're like, did that just happen?
Yeah. Goldblum's great too, and he's actually in it a little bit more than in some of his other films. I mean, Goldblum is in. I mean, very famously, and funnily, he's in doesn't even have a line right in Asteroid City. He's in it for what, 2 seconds, and it's like, oh, that's awesome. There's Goldblum, like he finally showed up. But he plays Deputy Kovacs, the lawyer essentially that's like executing the will and last testament for the Tilda Swinton character. So yeah, I might say him, but also I was really taken with Jude Law in the scenes where he's talking with Mary Abraham about his past and stuff like that. Like I don't know, I want Jude Law to continue to be in these. I think he's really understands. Not everybody can play in this like Wes Anderson world, but I think Jude Law does it really well. I mean, obviously Brody's great. Willem Dafoe is phenomenal. I think that's a good shout, but the Bill Murray couple scenes are really good. But yeah, so I give kind of like a to Jeff Goldblum and Jude Law as kind of the fun kind of secondary characters.
Jude Law is interesting because you don't see a lot of like listeners in film, because Law is pretty much just there to absorb Abraham's story, and he plays captivated so well. Like you could just tell that like it's all he's doing is focusing.
Yep. And he's a young writer, right? So it's like he is the younger version of the Tom Wilkinson character, right? Like that's like, hey, if you're just willing to kind of like sit there and listen, like stories will appear out of thin air. And so like that's really cool that we have that quote at the beginning. You actually see it played out so well from the Jude Law character. So I really like that element of it. And I think F. Murray Abraham too is really good. I mean, he kind of has those like these emotional moments that really pull on you that I think are fantastic. And he's just like completely overqualified to be like just this like little bit part character, but he does a really good job.
F. Murray Abraham just like shows up every 10 or 15 years and just dominates in one performance and then disappears again.
Yeah. No, he's so good in this. Mr. Mustafa. Yeah.
Yeah. This might be my favorite Adrian Brody performance. Just Dimitri, this like greasy, obnoxious piece of shit who just wants something that someone said he couldn't have. He plays smarmy better than maybe anybody.
Yes, and he just gets Wes Anderson. He gets the tone. He gets he understands it like so perfectly. Schwartzman too. I mean, Schwartzman's not in this one a ton. Obviously, he's been the star of a couple of his, but he just gets it. He's like we're on the same wavelength so clearly. And I want to shout out just like a bunch of the kind of random, like we already mentioned Bill Murray, but like Bob Balaban, Lucas Hedges with the one scene. Owen Wilson has a couple, and then Fisher Stevens has the one scene that's pretty good. He's one of the guys on the phone that kind of calls the other hotel like concierge. I thought those are all really fun scenes, and a chance for like the Wes Anderson, group to kind of get a little bit of shine that he has had in a bunch of his movies. So I liked all those guys.
Oh yeah, I love Harvey Keitel's brief little bit as just this like beefy prisoner guy.
Yep.
I think Saoirse Ronan as the Mendel's girl, fantastic. Yeah.
Shame that we haven't mentioned her yet. I mean, I think she's awesome with what is it, Mexico, right? It's the birthmark with the shape of Mexico. She's great. Yeah, she's really good. And I think Léa Seydoux is really good too, as the kind of like, well, I guess she's like some sort of like housemaid at the giant, compound. I can't remember what town that's in, but yeah, Zabravka is like the country, like fake country that we're in, which So the Zweig was he's Austrian, the writer that all this stuff is based off of. So I always kind of felt like I'm in like Austria, Czech Republic, I guess Czechoslovakia at the time. It would have been like, it's like that's kind of, we feel vaguely Central European is kind of like where I imagine that we are.
Yeah, it's never something that's like confusing or anything. Like it's just a time and place we all recognize as World War II Europe.
Yeah, and again, the using ZZ instead of the SS, like there's like little bits like that, and it's like this like kind of vaguely German like black cloud hanging over everything. I think that's really sharply done.
I agree, and Edward Norton plays a great fascist.
He does, kind at times, but overall, not great.
Best scene. What's the best scene of this movie?
So I kind of went with like what I would call my like the most like fun scene to me, and I think it's the chase between Jopling, Gustav, and Zero, which ends in Zero pushing Jopling over the edge of the cliff as Jopling is about to kind of like stomp the ice to like have Gustav fall off. that whole scene, the score in that scene, and like the combination of it being like obviously like, this really practical like effects movie, and then the kind of like ridiculous like super zoomed out like little snow chases and like fly down the mountain, in the little sled and stuff like that. Like I think that's really fun and like it's like perfectly Wes Anderson. And again, it's like it's different than like Royal Tenenbaums. Like there's a real kind of like yeah, I mean it's a chase scene. It's like a chase. It's like something like an action movie almost, but it's done in like a Wes Anderson way, which I think is really fun. So that would be my favorite.
I picked the same scene.
Really?
I love that bit, especially the end when Joplin's just stomping the ice and Gustav's composing his final words, and then Zero just comes up and Gustav gives the beautiful "Holy shit, you got him!"
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's delightful and it's fantastic. I love that bit.
That's hilarious. I didn't think you'd do that, but that's awesome.
Yeah. If I had to go with another one, I'd probably go with just the brief moment where Henkels, I believe it is, Edward Norton's character, goes to arrest Gustav for Madame D's murder. And Gustav just like, she was murdered, and you think I did it. And then he just bolts up the stairs.
Yeah. 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 He has that quick realization. They all kind of like look at each other. Yeah, and he's just gone. Yeah, that's really good. I love so on my secondary one, I think I would go with the initial scene when Kovacs, the Jeff Goldblum character, is like reading out the will, and Gustav is standing in the back, and like all the like those kind of like people that have shown up that I'm just trying to get a piece of and the one guy like doesn't understand. He's like, "Where is she at?" And he's like, "She died." Like it's like that's why we're here. It's like all these people are just these idiots. And then obviously Gustav is he gets a bunch of the fortune over, and there's like, who the hell is Mr. Gustav? And he's just standing at the back. But that whole like little bit right there too. And that's when we were introduced to Adrian Brody and the three sisters. The like ridiculous three sisters that feel like something out of like a Shakespeare novel, or a Shakespeare play or something. But yeah, I thought that scene was really good too, and like kind of has like all of our players all in one spot for a second there.
I love the three-pronged punch that leads up to.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Dimitri knocks out Gustav. Zero knocks out Dimitri. Joplin knocks out Zero. It's great.
Yeah. No, I love it. The most violent. It's clearly the most violent Wes Anderson movie.
Yeah, by a lot. I mean, Goldblum gets his fucking fingers sliced off.
Somebody gets their head cut off, and we see the head later. That woman, that French woman, Sturge's sister, right? Is that who it was? Yeah, it's Sturge's sister.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but I guess if it's in a Wes Anderson style, it's not as jarring or terrifying. If it's, I'd love to see him do like a horror movie and what that would look like.
That'd be fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. With that, let's take a look at what Letterboxd has to say on our final segment, What's in the Box?
What's in the fucking box? Give me the gun.
Grand Budapest is rocking 4.2 out of 5. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's a 5 out of 5 for me. Definitely. I have 1 positive review and 4 horrific reviews.
Let's hear them.
Because I've started going straight to the negative reviews because those are the funniest ones, and they're always just crazy people, especially when it's like a revered movie.
Yeah. Wait, so go negative first. I'm actually curious.
Yeah, I'm going to end on the 5-star one because it's a nice. All right.
Okay. Cool.
This first one's from JCRA. These are all half a stars, by the way. Wes Anderson doesn't have the flexibility to physically suck his own dick, so he made this movie, sucking his own dick harder than anyone could have ever anticipated.
That's very funny. That she's like, man, what an unpleasant person. Like, yeah, it's like that's just like I can't have any fun. I have to just be angry at this movie. That's like totally charming and like pleasant. Yeah, it's like that's a shame.
I picked that one mostly because like I did feel a bit of that with Asteroid City. Not to this extent. I wasn't like fuck you, but I was like, scale it back a little bit. This next one is from Ray. Didn't watch, don't care. I hate you, Wed Anderson.
So the thought of rating something or commenting on something that I didn't actually consume is like just insane. Like who does that? But so many people do it. So many people do that like on the internet. It's like oh, I'll chime in my 2 thoughts even though I have no context for it. Like it's just ridiculous.
It's infuriating. I hate these people. Like watch a second of it or so, just hey, 2 minutes, anything if you're going to say something. But to just be like, I didn't even watch this. Fuck you. I don't like it. Like, go away. What are you contributing?
That's crazy. That's serial killer behavior to me. Like I just like yeah. Like it's so easy for me to be like, oh yeah, I didn't see it. Like I don't have an opinion, or like I don't know enough about that topic to like speak on it. You know, it's like that's so easy for me to say, but I guess it's just not for some people.
Some people, it's a real problem for a lot of people. They cannot admit that they don't know what they're talking about. They have to have an opinion on everything. Instead of just saying, like, I don't know, I'll go find out. It's easy to do. It doesn't make you look stupid. It doesn't make you look ill-informed. If anything, it makes you look like the bigger man because you're willing to go find out.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
I know. Yeah. This is from Norm Cleveland Jr. I'm getting real tired of this Wes Anderson guy. Yeah, I don't care for Wes Anderson either, but I like Wes Anderson.
Yeah. Somewhere there's a guy named Wes Anderson. It's just like, dude, what the hell? Like, I'm just like, you know, like I was trying to think of just like some random job. You know, what's funny? The first job I thought of was blacksmith. Like, nobody does that anymore. But yeah, carpenter. You know, I don't know. Yeah, this guy's just like an accountant. Yeah, Wes Anderson, the accountant. It's like, dude, what the hell? I didn't do anything.
Picturing like a legit cowboy who's like just on a horse, like what, you know, old Wild West Anderson over there.
Actually, Wes Anderson. Yeah, that's pretty funny. Wes Anderson's like a relatively common name. I mean, same as like mine. Obviously, Adam Johnson's incredibly common, but yeah, it's weird. It's like there's this whole range of like relatively famous people with my name that like, you know, yeah, have these like random claims to fame. Whereas like Connor Eyzaguirre, pretty unique. You know, not a ton of those running around.
If I stumble onto another Connor Eyzaguirre, there's a good to fair chance he's from another dimension, and I have to help him get home.
It's a different, it's a Spider-Verse, it's a situation, for sure.
This is from Loden.
Okay.
Dear Wes Anderson fans, if you love symmetry so much, go watch a fucking triangle. And symmetry is the word I was trying to think of earlier, by the way.
That's pretty funny. Yeah.
But I love that. Go watch a fucking triangle.
That's pretty funny. I'll give it to him. That's pretty good.
That's such a weird insult to throw. Like, oh yeah, why don't you go watch a fucking triangle, asshole? Like,
how dare you like this visual medium? Yeah.
the things that trigger some people, like fuck shapes and their finely tuned corners. Jesus Christ. Okay. And this last one is from Houston Coley, 5 stars. A movie about a girl who reads a book about a man who hears a story about a lobby boy who meets a man who runs a hotel for which the story, the book, and the movies are named for.
I like it.
Just, yeah, that about sums it up. Just, I love that Wes Anderson could think of a rabbit hole and a framing device that deep.
Yeah. I mean, I had a note about this. I said the layered structure of the movie is actually really compelling, and it allows different actors to flourish in their parts in like different eras of the world, right? So like I actually think that like really lends itself well to this movie. Sometimes that like kind of time jumping thing and like narrator thing and this person's telling the story in this perspective and it shifts can be really distracting, but I actually think it helps this movie a ton. I think it really makes it pop.
Me too. I usually don't like stuff that like unnecessarily complicated, but it didn't bother me once in this. I find it sweet.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's also like incredibly rewatchable. Like I've seen it a lot of times and I've shown it to different people and they've shown it to people. It's like that I think is a huge element of it. I'm not sure all of his movies are like that, but I find this one very rewatchable.
I think Budapest and Royal Tenenbaums, I think, are his most rewatchable movies.
Yeah. And even this project too that we've done, like there's even picks that I made that I'm not like, oh, I can't wait to watch that again. It's just like, man, that's just really good. And but like this one was like, oh, sweet. Like, I get to watch Grand Budapest tonight. It's like, I've seen it however many times, a dozen times. Like, cool. I want to watch it again. That's great.
Yeah. It is nice to do that. There's been some on this list where I'm like, I like that, but do I really want to sit down and watch that again?
Yeah. But and some of those are even my own picks, like, and I'm still just kind of like, oh yeah, that's pretty heavy. It's the reason we did not do OJ Made in America, because it's like 7 hours long. It's like we're not going to devote. That's just like too much, for one episode. So, and then the themes that thing talks on. I mean, you could talk for days and days about that. But yeah, no, I'm this one was like very easy to be like, oh cool, like let's pop this in and can't wait.
Yeah, pretty much everything we got going forward, I'm excited to watch.
Me too.
Beautiful. Um, Next week, our series continues with Adam's number 3, Spike Jonze's 2013 sci-fi romantic drama, Her, starring Joaquin Phoenix, Scarlett Johansson, and Amy Adams. A poignant insight into the nature of love and what it means to be human. It's going to be very exciting. I haven't seen this in like 6-7 years. I'm psyched.
Yeah, that one I'm imagining we'll probably talk about some stuff, like some real life stuff a little bit more than we did with Grand Budapest. While is not this empty emotional movie. It's a pretty straightforward tale that has like a beginning, middle, and end. It's fun and can cause you to think about some things that are outside of that world. But Her is like that is the movie, right? It's like it's making you confront and think about things in a very unique way. I cannot wait to talk about that one with you guys because I'm sure it'll get deep, as we are wont to do at times.
Oh yes, indeed. In the meantime, keep your hands off my lobby boy. Take it easy. Keep watching movies, and we'll see you next time.